My name is Catherine Swanwick. I'm the Director of Outreach for MindSpec, and we officially welcome all of you here to our first Autism Reading Room Forum. So our new science outreach website, the Autism Reading Room, is designed to enhance public understanding of autism research. And so in honor of this mission, we have gathered everybody here today and invited a diverse group of experts in order to promote communication among scientists, clinicians, policymakers, educators, and affected families. So our first speaker tonight is Marcia Knudsen from the Office of Congressman James P. Moran, Virginia 8. And we are extremely lucky to have her here and talk to us more about the brand new Autism Educators Act of 2012. Marcia, please.
Thank you. I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but I am not a licensed nurse practitioner, as it says in the program. I am, however, a licensed teacher. It's been a while since I've been in the classroom, but the plight of teachers who get special needs kids in their classroom without any support is something I'm well acquainted with. The original concept for this bill, because I don't want to insult your intelligence, but my boss, Jim Moran, is just right over here in Arlington and Alexandria. So we obviously have better access to our constituents than a lot of members of Congress. Some parents actually approached him on the street. Well, okay, it was at the Metro, and said that they were having trouble in school with their autistic children, and would he come and meet with them to talk about it. And my first reaction was education, local issue, not a federal issue. But, you know, he made the commitment, so he and I went over to, they gathered a bunch of parents together, and we went over and actually met them at their home, and they told us their stories, which basically were the same. They had high-functioning children who were put in mainstream classrooms, but the teachers did not know how to effectively communicate with them. Some of them stuck it out. The ones that could afford it pulled them out and put them in a private school. And, you know, Arlington is fairly affluent in parts, but not everybody can afford to do that. And so I'm thinking, okay, at the federal level, what could we do? And I came up with this idea of an in-service training program, demonstration grant, because that's one thing that the federal government does is demonstration projects. We have a competition. We get some school district gets a grant, and they put together the materials that it takes to train practicing teachers on how to more effectively communicate with children on the spectrum. And that was the idea. It sort of spread all over Northern Virginia, and there are actually some special ed PTAs and a lot of autism groups. They have a huge online connection. So I worked with all these parents over the months. We came up with this bill and introduced it not too long ago, and that's really all it does. It's a demonstration program that would go through the Department of Education. A school district in partnership with an institution of higher education would partner up. They'd take 2 years to plan and 3 years to implement a program of in-service training and hopefully improve the communication skills, and then the Department of Education could disseminate their findings to other schools and, you know, deal with this situation. So that's what the bill is. I'm particularly proud of it because it really came from real people who have a real need, and they came to their congressman and he tried to help them, and that's what we're doing. Every single parent that's seen it loves it. Oh, it's just what we need. So we're in the point now where we're just trying to get support for our legislation. What are the chances of it passing? I don't know how political you are, but in this particular session of Congress, slim. But what we do hope to do next session, the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, ESEA, also known as No Child Left Behind, It's supposed to be reauthorized this year, but it's not going to happen. So that's something they absolutely have to do next year. And there is Title II of that program is professional development. And we hope to get this provision into Title II of the ESCA reauthorization, and that's our goal. So be happy to take questions. Okay.
Has any questions? I guess I'll start with one. So what about the other autism legislation acts currently in Congress right now?
You mean like CARA?
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, although that's a fairly, I mean, there's not really any opposition to that, but the problem is it's a pretty dysfunctional Congress. And I don't know this for a fact, but I don't think CARA is going anywhere. The one thing that they have to do is the PDUFA and the MDUFA bills, which are the prescription drug user fee and the medical device user fee. Those things, those user fees expire in September, and if the FDA does not have the authority to collect those user fees, there goes about 60% of their budget. So they're working on that, and that's really the only sort of non-money thing, although it kind of is money, that's going to go anywhere this year. There are bills on the floor all the time, but they're very low content-wise, There are just things we have to get done, like a defense bill and that sort of thing. But I don't see, unfortunately, that happening. I could be wrong. I hope I am.
I was interested because in the beginning of your talk you mentioned the parents coming, and at first your reaction was, well, that's a local issue.
Right.
And then clearly something evolved, and I'm just curious, my sense is from what you said that the families and parents had a great impact on your office's thinking, and I'm just wondering if you could talk about that a little bit and how it evolved into what it is now.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. We get, education is a state issue. It's the #1 priority of most states. The federal role in education is limited. They stepped in, especially to help disadvantaged children, and that if you look at the federal education laws, they help they are primarily targeted to disadvantaged kids. Now, disadvantaged could be low income, which is what the Title I program is all about. Title I money going to schools that have high numbers of families in the low income range, and they obviously don't have the property tax base to put the good money into their schools. So that's what Title I does. And then IDEA, which is the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, those children are disadvantaged either physically or mentally. So we put money into that, not enough, by the way. And then the third major thing that the Department of Education does is student loans, and those are for disadvantaged children who can't afford to go to college. So obviously the programs at the Department of Education have grown, but when people call me, because I do education issues, and have a problem with their school, well, we don't have anything to do with your local school. That is really off bounds. We don't have any jurisdiction there at all. You have a local school board, you have a state school board. None of it has anything to do with Congress. But they obviously had a problem, and it struck me and my boss that it wasn't that the school didn't want to help. They didn't have the resources to help. And so that's why we came up with this demonstration project, because it's all about, resources and, money. So that's how that came to be. Yes? I know exactly what you're saying. I'll tell you what we did a couple of years ago. There is a provision in the Higher Education Reauthorization Act that we got some money for. And it's a program actually started out in California where they take children with primarily mental disabilities and put them in a community college setting, but a live-in setting. And they train them in life skills. It's really done well in California, and they have a huge waiting list. So a bunch of these community college people have gotten together and established a coalition, got this included into the Higher Ed Act, and we got money for it, and that's, as far as I know, unfortunately, I don't know what's happened to that grant, but I'm sure the department is in the midst of competing it right now. The whole, and it's exactly the point you said. The father who brought this issue to us has two boys, both autistic. They're in the middle school age now, and he said, "I'm not worried about him now. I'm worried about him. You know, he's older, and he is not going to be around to help them when they get into their 20s and 30s. And so what's going to happen to these kids?" So this is something that people are just now starting to think about. In Virginia, like I said, we're trying to get this program at the Northern Virginia Community College. It's job training, but it's also life skills. Some of these kids could probably live on their own. Some will probably have to go to a group home. And as you may or may not know, Virginia has these training centers now that are, some people think of them as institutions. There's 5 of them, and they're closing 4 of them. And they're shifting away from this institution model to the community setting and the group homes. And I think that will be an emerging issue over the next several years, especially as this huge boom in mental disabilities as those kids mature. Fortunately, most of them, or not most of them, but a lot of them have really active parents, and that's what it takes. We have actually the parent group in Arlington is, I talk to them all the time. They are very helpful to me, understanding the issue, getting the legislation. Then they have this big, huge network outside of Virginia. They're all in there for the long haul, help their kids.
Well, thank you, Marcia.
You're welcome.